Hey guys, welcome to the MagFat Ranch Paintball channel, and today I'm going to be doing a top 5 video. But before I get into it guys, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, share, and comment. Alright guys, so today's top 5 topic is the top 5 things I hate about the Tippmann TiPX pistol. Okay guys, but before I delve into it, I want to let you guys know a couple things. First off, I don't hate the marker itself. I think the Tippmann TiPX pistol is still the best backup paintball pistol marker, or obviously if you want to run like just that as your primary. I personally think it's still the best pistol marker out there available, better than the FSC, better than whatever old offerings First Strike had, right? I think they had a T8, a T9 as well too. I think they had like a full-size version of the FSC. I'm blanking out on the name of it. There's the Roscoe as well too, but that thing is a 50 caliber pistol, revolver style marker. So, in terms of all the pistol markers available, it's still the best one out there. But there's a lot of things to be, let's just say, left undesired with this marker, okay guys? And so getting into that was the second thing I want to bring up. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that I personally don't like about the Tippmann TiPX. And so instead of like 5 things, it's pretty much going to be 5 categories, guys. And so like I said, I'll explain further as I break it all down for you. So yeah, let's begin. So starting out with number 5, it is the air system that these TiPX comes stock with, or the air source specifically that you have to use, which is unfortunately these CO2 12-gram cartridges. And anybody that's played paintball for a long time, obviously when I played long time ago, CO2 was kind of the only thing available. It was what everyone used. But obviously with the advent of compressed air, HPA, that's really, CO2 is kind of irrelevant now. It's not stable, it's not consistent. It obviously does a lot of damage to your O-rings, and specifically with the TiPX pistol, it does wear on all the different O-rings inside the pistol, and that leads to kind of one of the other categories, which I'll get into later. But obviously from a maintenance, a performance, and just a reliability standpoint, the fact that, a lot of the pistols, including the TiPX, unfortunately uses the 12-gram CO2 cartridges, that is a major flaw in the system, okay? The FPS from shot to shot obviously can fluctuate a lot when the CO2 doesn't, obviously, depending on weather, depending on how much you're shooting, how fast you're shooting. It could definitely fluctuate quite a bit, because real quick, obviously CO2 is normally as a liquid, and then it will transition to a gas under the right condition. And then once it actually has obviously changed to a gas, that's when it can actually be used, with your marker, okay, guys? And so that's what kind of creates that instability. And then this issue leads me to number 4, guys. So number 5 is unfortunately the CO2 and the fact that we have to use 12-gram cartridges. But number 4 leads to the fact that there's just a lot of tinkering that you have to do with the TiPX pistol to make it reliable. So let's touch on that reliability real quick. So Tippmann, has a very solid reputation in the industry of making reliable markers and products, and it's well deserved. There's a reason why the 98s, A5s, X7s, they've been around forever. Obviously a lot of fields use them as rental markers because they're durable, they're chunky, right? They're simple designs, easily serviceable, affordable as well too. And they work great. Performance obviously isn't the concern with the rental, but obviously reliability is, right? And then ease of maintenance. So the thing about the TiPX, how it relates when it comes to Tippmann products, is that it does have that kind of that that objective in mind when they built it, right? But the problem is, since it's got so many things going on inside it, and I'll show you guys that later when we go to our other part of our top 5, that unless you get all the settings correct, you can definitely end up not getting a reliable marker out of the process. And so one of the things I want to start out with, for example, is, the CO2 cartridges, for example. To charge the TiPX pistol, you have to insert a 12-gram cartridge in the front cartridge puncturing chamber, right, assembly. And the problem is, with CO2 cartridges, you can get different lengths. So I have a Crossman 12-gram cartridge here, and then I have a RAP4 or MCS 12-gram cartridge on the right. And you'll notice that the MCS cartridge is slightly taller, just a hair taller, okay? But when you go to insert the cartridge and you go to insert the CO2 cap onto the marker, that distance can be different. And so you notice here, if I want to go puncture this 12-gram cartridge, the Crossman one, you notice that I have a lot of play in my trigger, okay? And that's because the adjustment that I had for this cap was set up for the MCS 12-gram cartridge. So you'll notice here that there's less play, okay? So when I go press this trigger now, it's gonna puncture that cartridge right away and more effectively. And so Tippmann obviously designed an adjustment in the cap so that you can adjust that distance in and out. As you can see here, they have a Allen key head screw in there, and it's a let me see here, guys. It's a 3/16 Allen key, so you can adjust it in and out, so that way it'll take up for the different distances of the cartridges. But once again, it's just one of those things, right? So now you're gonna have to make this adjustment every time if you're switching out cartridges. So let's say, you go play at one field and there's, they sell one brand of cartridges, and then you go to play at another field, or you bring your own cartridges and and it's a different distance. Now you got to make sure that you're adjusting that every time, okay? Otherwise, you're not going to get a solid puncture when you go press the trigger. All right. The other thing too is how the velocity and the pressure relief valve for the TiPX air system is set up. So on the back of the marker, you have your regulating valve assembly right here. And I'll open up this marker later, guys, to show you when I get into the other numbers. But in essence, the velocity adjustment and the pressure relief setting is on the back of the marker here. The velocity adjustment is used with the 3/16 Allen key, as you can see here. And the pressure relief adjustment is used with a 1/8 Allen key, okay? And so, depending on, once again, the temperature, the CO2 cartridge brand that you're using, what you have your velocity set at, you're going to have to kind of make adjustments with the velocity screw and the pressure regulating valve screw frequently, right? So let's say you go out one day and it's super cold, you're gonna have to make sure you adjust all these things, either at home with your chronograph, or obviously once you get to the field, you're gonna want to adjust that before going playing. Otherwise, like I said, it might not be at the right setting. You might not get the right velocity that you want to fire at. Your regulating valve is pressure relief valve, is not set at the right setting, and then it might leak. And so if you hear like a leak coming out the back of your screw setting here, that's typically the common problem, is that the pressure relief valve screw is not set properly. But once again, it's just another thing to check out for every time you go play, or even let's say in between rounds when you play with the marker a lot. And so it's just tinkering. It's wasting of CO2 cartridges every time you have to go tinker with it and make the adjustments properly. Okay. So yeah, and then the other thing too is just that there's a lot of like components inside that you just want to make sure is set properly and everything like that. But in terms of the tinkering with the marker, those two are the big things, right, guys? So it's just a lot of adjustments, frequent adjustments here, and obviously the potential adjustment of the CO2 puncturing assembly. Okay. Okay, so that was number 4, guys. Number 3 is the performance. So after you've dealt with the CO2 cartridges, you've got the velocity set, you've adjusted the pressure relief valve correctly, and you've dialed in your velocity. The problem is the performance of a bone stock TiPX pistol isn't that great. It's okay. The barrel that comes with it is just your standard smoothbore barrel. Works great with round ball. It obviously works with first strike rounds, but that's assuming you have to get the first strike capability out of it. From the factory, this thing isn't obviously first strike capable. Okay, and so just the basic performance of it with round ball is okay, but it's not nowhere near as good as a rifle. I mean, at least like let's say an EMF, a T15, a M17, you're gonna get a lot more consistent FPS. You're gonna get a lot more efficiency, right? You're gonna be able to shoot way more mags, 6 to 7 magazines with a 13 CI HPA tank, versus maybe 2 or 3 magazines with just a 12-gram cartridge CO2. Okay. And then, like I said, with the FPS fluctuation, the consistent shot to shot, the rifles are going to do a much better job. And then the next thing too, of course, is that it's just the fact that it's a pistol. Now, for its purpose, intention of obviously fast CQB, very compact, so that you can engage corners very fast, right? Go around like objects really fast. And obviously for close range distances, that's not a huge advantage. But in terms of accuracy, the rifle is going to be more accurate to shoot, right? I mean, I think the majority of people out there, they're going to be able to shoot a rifle that has obviously a longer sight picture, right? Distance between the front and the rear sight. There's more places to grip the rifle versus a pistol. You're just going to be able to shoot a rifle a lot more accurate than a pistol. And then let's get into the magazines real quick. Obviously the magazines, they only hold 7 rounds, okay? Even if you got the 12 round magazines that were designed with the long range first strike kit, it's still 12 rounds only versus the 19 or 18 round magazines, or even the 20 round magazines from the EMF, right? So you're going to be underpowered slightly. And once again, like I was saying, if you're only playing with CO2, you might be able to only shoot 2 to 3 of the 7 round magazines before your CO2 goes empty. And so that means you're only shooting about 15 to 20 something rounds before the CO2 needs to be recharged. Whereas, you're going to get a lot more firepower with the rifle, okay? And like I said, until you get a long-range conversion kit, right, that's going to, you can't even shoot first strike rounds out of this thing. And so, that's going to add to the cost. So performance is number 3 on my list, guys. So even after you tinker with it and everything like that, yes, is it cool to play with a pistol? Yes, is it cool to play CQB? And it does have its advantages in a very tight quarter situation, but the performance is still lacking when you compare it to an actual rifle marker. Okay. Number 2 is going to be a combination of metrics, guys, and that is going to be cost and modularity, or in essence, upgradable, right? Like, can you modify the marker to get it to perform better and stuff like that. Okay, guys? And my gripe why it's so high on the list is because the TiPX pistol is really no longer an affordable marker. Right? When I first got this marker way back in the day, guys, this thing was right around $200, $225. Okay, but if you looked at recently, these things are around $350 now, and they haven't changed. You know, you're still getting the standard 7-round magazine. You're still getting the standard CO2 cartridge setup. The smooth bore rifle. Smooth bore barrel, and so it doesn't come first strike capable. It doesn't come with a rifle barrel. It doesn't come with, the 12-round magazines or, a capability out of the box, of course, capability out of the box to use HPA. All that stuff is unfortunately separate, right? You're going to have to buy the remote adapter, remote line, HPA tank. If you want to play HPA, you're going to have to buy some type of FSR breech. Or the long range conversion kit, guys. Go check out that video about those two products that I did a review on. But regardless, you're going to have to get those items to be able to get that capability, and that's all going to add the cost, right? For example, the long range conversion kit's around $100. The breech by itself, even though it doesn't work that well, is around $30. And then of course you're going to have to get some more magazines as well. So the rifle barrel is going to be another $50 or $60. Obviously, the HPA setup, remote line setup, and everything with the tank is going to run you an extra $100-something. And so after you start adding, $200 to $300 extra to the $350 you're already spending on the TiPX pistol, you're looking at $600 to $650. You're at the price of an EMF or a T15 at that point. I think honestly, at this point, the M17 from Vulcan is a way more affordable package out of the box that's already first strike capable. It's reliable. It has its issues, of course, like any marker does, guys. Go check out the M17 videos, that I have shot on my channel. But out of the box, the M17, in my mind, is a better value, right? So cost, and then like I said, modularity. That includes obviously standard features is what I'm talking about out of the box, and this thing doesn't come with a lot of standard features out of the box now compared to if you want to call it its competitors, right? If you want to call the rifled markers as its competitor, it doesn't have a lot of features that those other markers offer. And if you're getting into MagFed, a lot of people originally thought that this would be kind of the best marker to begin with, right? You can use it as a backup. You can kind of just ease yourself into the MagFed gameplay. But with the cost of it now, and the fact that it doesn't offer that many features, I don't think it's the best choice for a beginner anymore. Okay, so that's number 2, guys. Number 1, guys, is to me is one of the biggest issues with the TiPX. And that is maintenance, guys. This thing is unfortunately a pain in the butt to maintain. Now, when it's all set properly and it's working well and it's firing well, luckily you don't have to maintain it that much. Short of maybe a barrel break, right? And the barrel is luckily very easy to remove. It's just threaded, so you just have to, unthread the barrel here. A little tight right now, so I can't unthread it, but for the most part, straightforward, but even if you don't need to remove the barrel, you can just squeegee it out real quick. The magazine well is really big. It's really easy to clean out. So for the most part, when the gun, when the marker is tuned properly and it's working properly, you don't have a whole lot of maintenance to do. But as I was touching upon it earlier, right, with number 4, there's a lot of tinkering you have to do to maintain that reliability. From adjusting the pressure relief valve to the velocity adjustment every time you're going out or if you're playing with it frequently. And then, of course, the changing of the CO2 cap so that way the distance is the correct distance. There's a lot of tinkering to do. And then when you do have an issue, and this is where I'm going to take the marker apart for you guys. when you do have an issue with the marker, and let's say it has a leak or something is not functioning properly with it, it's not the easiest marker to disassemble and reassemble. As you can see here, there's a bunch of Allen head bolts that you have to unscrew. And guys, don't get me wrong, this is similar to the M17, but you know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Allen head bolts that you have to take apart. And then the marker halves will separate, and then you can get inside the marker to, you know, lubricate it, to see what's going on, see what's leaking, and of course fix it if there's a problem. And therein lies the other problem, guys, is that let's say you have a leak, which is typically the common reason on why you need to take this thing apart and figure out what's going on, is that it will have leaks. And that is due to, partly, once again, number 5, the fact that it uses a CO2 air source. And then the other fact is that there is a lot of components in the marker itself, guys. So I'm going to flip it this way so you guys can see it better. But for example, here is the maintenance parts kit that I have for the TiPX pistol. You know, it's got a buttload of O-rings, right? They're for either the air puncture assembly, which you have here, the regulator valve assembly, which you have here, or the air valve assembly with the firing valve assembly, as you have here, right? And then within those components, there's a bunch of little other small components within it as well, with O-rings and springs. And so that's kind of what all these replacement parts can be used for, right? And so there's just a lot of things to go wrong, right? Like, we always like to keep it KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. And so the TiPX pistol, unfortunately, isn't really KISS, right? It's got a lot of components, you know. For example, you know, this air puncture valve assembly, it has a few O-rings in it as well. And then the long airline assembly has 2 O-rings on either side. Then you go to the regulating valve assembly, and it has the pressure relief valve, the velocity adjustment screw, the pin is in here too, the relief pressure valve spring and pin. Then it's got this short airline here with 2 O-rings on either side. So just a lot of components, guys, to go bad. I've had to replace at one point all these O-rings at one point, and so hence why I have that O-ring kit, guys. But when one of these O-rings leak, that's the other thing. It's kind of a pain in the ass to figure out which one is leaking. And so you kind of end up either one, you know, just biting the bullet and replacing all of them, or if you know, really want to figure it out like I am, you know, I kind of like to figure out why something is working or why something isn't working, then you have to kind of replace 1 or 2 at a time. And that means you're going through a lot of CO2 cartridges to figure out what the problem is, right? In contrast, for example, here, I have pretty much my M17 parts kit that came with the marker, and it literally just has like 2 or 3 O-rings in there. Okay, guys? And I've yet to even replace any one of my M17's O-rings. Comes with some lubricant as well, too. And the T15, for example, yes, it comes with a bunch of Allen keys, because the T15, you know, does have a few Allen keys that you need to either make the velocity adjustment, or maybe take like the rear air valve assembly apart, ASA adapter apart, guys. Go check out that video where I do the drop down adapter. But anyways, you know, it does have some tools, but for the most part, the T15 is simple to maintain. Yes, it does have a couple little O-rings that you just want to check on from time to time. For example, like this kind of 8-figure O-ring, and obviously the one below it as well, which is like the teardrop O-ring that I mentioned in my previous videos. But for the most part, there's not that many O-rings to replace. I haven't replaced any O-rings, for example, on any of my T15s, guys, and I've shot a lot of rounds through all my T15s. Have I lubed it? Yes, but have I replaced a lot of them? Compared to my TiPX pistol, not anywhere remotely close. So even though the rifles are bigger, you would think they'd be more complicated, but in actuality, the TiPX pistol is actually more complicated. Okay, and so yeah, so hopefully, I don't know, maybe there's another paintball company out there that can make a more like simple design, something that just doesn't have so many different components. Maybe something that's like similar to a heat core where it's just all housed in one component, so that way you're not having to worry about all these miscellaneous separate components. And that would hopefully make it, you know, less of a maintenance whore and less, obviously, like I said, having to tinker with it. Now, like I said, guys, it is reliable once all these things are set and once they're all figured out, but the problem is trying to figure it out and kind of, you know, just obviously playing around with it, so that way you make sure that it works well. But hey guys, like I said, if you guys like that video, subscribe to the channel, smash the like button. I'll check you guys next time. Peace.